play-by-play till we're finished. We're in hell right now, gentlemen, believe me. And we can stay here, get the shit kicked out of us, or we can fight our way back into the light. We can climb out of hell. 1 inch at a time. You know, when you get old in life, things get taken from you. I mean, that's part of life. But you only learn that when you start losing stuff. You find out life's this game of inches. So is football. Because in either game, life or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, 1/2 a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. Hell yeah. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second. On this team, we fight for that inch. On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw our fingernails for that inch. Because we know when we add up all those inches, that's going to make the fucking difference between winning and losing. Between living and dying. I'll tell you this, in any fight, it's the guy who's willing to die who's going to win that inch. And I know if I'm going to have any life anymore, it's because I'm still willing to fight and die for that inch. Because that's what living is. There's 6 inches in front of your face. Now, I can't make you do it. You got to look at the guy next to you. Look into his eyes. Now, I think you're going to see a guy who will go that inch with you. You're going to see a guy who will sacrifice himself for this team because he knows when it comes down to it, you're going to do the same for him. That's the team, gentlemen. And either we heal now as a team, or we will die as individuals.
Ideas are bulletproof.
Yes, they are. Ideas are bulletproof. They can't stop us all. So everybody rise up, get pissed, get mad, get involved, and do something. Take your country back. Take your planet back. Otherwise, we're going to end up in a tyrannical 1984 technologically advanced type prison planet that's going to make anything in the past look like Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm. Welcome to the show, guys. I'm your host, Popeye. This is Down the Rabbit Hole. And today, I am pleased to be joined by 2 of my friends. And everybody out there already knows who they are. I couldn't give them an introduction big enough that would be fitting of them. So I'll just bring them on, and you guys can enjoy them. Chris, Sheree, say hello.
Oh, you're too kind, Popeye. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And I mean, all the activism that you've done, all the work that you've done, it's just an honor. And you've been very inspirational to us, too. As you can tell in that video that I posted, I put fear is the mind killer. And I didn't quite understand what that meant because I've heard it from Dune over and over and over again. But when you said it on our show, it really just resonated with me completely and just brought a whole new meaning to it.
Well, you certainly showed no fear the other day. And just in case the listeners don't know what I'm talking about, Chris was doing his duty as an independent journalist, which I don't see anybody else in the mainstream doing, okay? And he confronted, I think it was Department of Homeland Security, if I remember correctly, and they were writing down license plate numbers in front of a local post office for no apparent reason, just doing it. So Chris, doing his due diligence as a reporter and a journalist and a radio show host, he went and questioned them. And boy, that didn't turn out too good, did it, Chris?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. It's a matter of perspective, really. But I'll get into that in a minute. It was actually FEMA that was writing down license plates, which raised even more of a red flag. Had it been DHS, then I would have thought, that's what they do. They're Homeland Security, they're Gestapo anyways. But FEMA was doing it, and this was 2 days after the earthquake in Denver and a day after the earthquake in Washington. So I was thinking maybe they're getting ready, gearing up for something coming up in the future. If we look at Japan and other areas like that, they seem to have small tremors and small earthquakes, 4.0, 5.0, things like that, before the big one hits. So me being the crazy conspiracy theorist that I am, I'm thinking maybe these are the small ones and they know about the big ones coming. But I thought they were gearing up for a whole operation. But as it turns out, they were just writing down license plates. But still, why should they violate our rights like that and write down license plates? Why do they need a tracking databases? That's a question that everybody out there should be asking. And we got in their face and asked them the questions. And it was the security guard, really, that B. Larson guy, who really started the whole ordeal. As soon as I walked in, he said, "You can't film here. You can't film here." And when somebody tells a journalist you can't film, more of a reason to film, because, hey, what are you trying to hide? And as it turns out, it's not even illegal to film a federal building. Even Homeland Security's own documents, clearly, they have an outline on how to handle people that are filming the buildings. And it starts out, for number one, observe the individual's actions until the time that you believe that a field interview is warranted. Approach the individual taking the photographs. Remember that the public has a right to photograph the exterior of a federal facility from publicly accessible spaces such as streets, sidewalks, parks, and plazas. Identify yourself. Conduct a field investigation to determine the purpose of taking photographs of the facility and endeavor to ascertain the identity of the individual. Note that such encounters are voluntary contacts, not detentions. In order to detain somebody, you have to have reasonable suspicion. And then you can move forward to what's called the Terry stop, which came out of Terry, Ohio. And the Terry stop is where they think, you might be up to you might be up to no good, but they have to have a reasonable suspicion, as in they see a pack of zigzags in your hand. And then they might, reasonably suspect you might have marijuana in a place where it's illegal. Or they smell marijuana smoke, reasonable suspicion again. So we seem to have gone from point A to point C all of a sudden. In order to arrest somebody, you have to have probable cause. We all know this. And we were still conducting the field interview, or he was conducting the field interview, I should say. And then all of a sudden he decided to put the handcuffs on me because I decided to walk away. He started asking me for my identification. Knowing that this was a field interview they were conducting, of course, I stuck to my Fourth Amendment right. Now, we got a few comments that made a lot of sense. Somebody said, well, next time, just don't take your identification with you. And then you don't have to tell them no. You can just tell them that you don't have it. Simple as that. That was very good advice. But when you're in the middle of it, you have your adrenaline pumping and you're trying to fight your adrenaline and you're trying to fight all of these negative emotions, fear and anger and everything like that. And you're trying to maintain that calmness. And that's what we have to do, ladies and gentlemen. We have to maintain calmness because, like Popeye has said time and time again, fear is the mind killer. When you're in a battle of wits, you don't want to fear because it's going to kill your mind. Simple as that. So you treat these people with love, kindness, understanding, and respect, and the situation ends completely different.
Yeah, in fact, if you watch the video, which is available, Chris's articles on my site, the Intel Hub, We Are Change, Truth Frequencies website, everywhere. It's all over. And it's on their YouTube channel, obviously, the video. And you see everything go on. And then Sheree was, rightfully so, she was very concerned about your safety and about your welfare. And it's, like I said to you guys, it's just an extreme juxtaposition because you see them haul you off. And, of course, it's, oh, God, there goes Chris in handcuffs. And then you see Sheree upset. And then you come back over after being alone with this guy and being able to talk to him without, no billy clubs, tasers, guns, just man to man, human to human. You come over with no handcuffs on, strolling over to the vehicle and, hey, I need some business cards so I can give to the guy. And he makes a comment about Art Bell.
Yes. Yes. I had a nice chat with him. I think the situation went like this. From what I gathered, he was in front of a few other of his buddies. And once he got me in the police car, he changed his tone real quick. He started asking, are you comfortable? Do you need the AC turned on? Do you need me to loosen the cuffs a little bit? Are you in pain? Et cetera, et cetera. So this guy, I don't think that he was a bad guy. I think that he really believed that you have to show your identification during a field investigation. I don't think he even knew the difference between a field investigation and a Terry stop or a probable cause to arrest somebody. I think that's where it went wrong. I can't put any blame on this guy. But then again, I want to take it back a second, though, because in their own memos, it says they must be polite, they must be respectful to the public. And I imagine that they've given these orders to their officers because they don't want to come off looking like the Gestapo or like the SS, even though that's how they're operating.
True. So maybe he was kind of just playing like an intel game, trying to be nice and see if you'd spew any info out or not.
Possibly. That thought ran through my head as well.
Yeah, probably could have been probably a little bit of both, but seeing the video, I'm leaning more towards. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Cool heads do prevail. And if anything can be taken away from Chris's experience with FEMA, it can be this. That if you know how to speak and you do not fear and you do not show them that fear, because humans can sense fear just like animals, okay? I'll give an example in a second, but humans can sense fear. If you show that you are not fearful and that you are confident in yourself, sometimes the outcome is much different. But if you show them fear, sometimes they feed off of it and they jump on that and they attack. Now, what I meant by giving an example of showing fear is if you've ever gotten into a fight with somebody, okay, if you've ever gotten in an argument with them, if you're really mad and you really mean that you're going to knock the crap out of him, say some guy's threatening you or whatever, he comes at you or whatever the case may be. Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and let them know that you will stand your ground and they back off? You can feel that primal fear inside of them when they give it off. Well, if you can feel that in just some simple back and forth fight, you don't think that these goons that get off on that can feel it? And I'm sure probably in front of the boys, he was probably showing off a little, Chris, and that's probably why he was trying to be a little tougher. But like you said, as soon as he got you by himself, I mean, look at how you were able to turn that around. And yeah, you got a BS ticket, but didn't the guy even say to you, if there wasn't so many people that had gotten involved, he wouldn't have even busted your chops with writing you a ticket. He would have just let you go.
Yeah, absolutely. It was the B. Larson guy that initiated all of this, so he was very heavily involved in this. And B. Larson worked for FEMA, and DHS showed up in the street. We were in the street, and the B. Larson guy kept saying, come on over here, come over here, come on, trying to get me to enter the FEMA property.
As if he had told the police, the DHS, that we had actually gone on the property, which we hadn't.
Well, I think that's what he told them.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But no, you're absolutely right. They do smell that fear. But I think it's not just smelling the fear. I think it's also treating you the way that you deserve to be treated. If you run around and say, don't tase me, bro, and start throwing a fit, well, mommy and daddy government's going to have to spank you. You know, if that's how it is. But if you present yourself like you're a mature adult, like you know what you're talking about, like you are a sovereign human being, then they will treat you accordingly. Most of them. There are some jackboots out there who just don't care. And there are some jackboots it'll make them even madder. So you have to really pick your battles, in my opinion. I've ran into some cops that I can tell just got out of Iraq. They're ready to just jackboot somebody and ready to throw them to the ground. And those guys, bye, hi, here's my driver's license, whatever, I'm out of here, at a traffic stop. But luckily I've never had to encounter any of those in a situation to where I wasn't driving, because I know that driving, you do have to show your identification, you do have to show your insurance, et cetera, et cetera. But when you're in the passenger seat or you're just on the sidewalk, the rules are completely different. You can stick to your Fourth Amendment right 100%. So, yeah, I completely agree. It's the way that you present yourself makes a huge, huge difference.
Yeah, there's no need to be a dick. Like, there's video of me couple years ago when they was it like a year and a half ago outside the Miami Health Department, and we were out there giving out just free DVDs and flyers because they were pushing the free H1N1 shot, and most of the people that were showing up couldn't speak English. So my wife speaks fluent Spanish, so I brought her with us, and she came down and she translated, and she was literally getting people to turn away, and all she said is, go home. You know, they're giving it away for free for a couple weeks. Today's the first day. Don't rush. Go home and educate yourself. Make an educated decision. Most people that we turned away, they at least said, you know, I don't know if they went back and got the shots, but at least they said, hey, you know, we'll go home and at least view the information. Now, the info they give them, if they still went and got the shots after they go through all the info I gave them, then there's no excuse for it. Then they did it out of, I don't know if they want to kill their kids, but most of them were very thankful. Thank you so much. You know, thank you for coming out and giving the information. So they called the cops. Well, when the cops showed up, they all had that attitude. But the worst part was about, I'd say 80% of the cops that showed up were Haitian and didn't even know the Constitution. You see, the way they work down here, Chris, is a lot of places will help you get your citizenship if you work for the city or you work for the county, or maybe you just got your citizenship and you need a job to keep it. You know what I'm saying? You want to be a good boy. You don't want to get in trouble. You want to stay below the radar. Maybe you have a green card and they're helping you, like I said, get into the citizenship program. The military does the same thing. So you have cops that were not born here, and I'm not picking on, my mother was an immigrant to this country, as were my grandparents a little bit before the Civil War. All right? So I come from a family of immigrants, as do pretty much almost every American citizen. Their family immigrated here at one point or another. So I'm definitely not against it. You know what I mean? I'm not picking on it or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm first generation in this country too.
So, well, you know, you get kind of, you know, I'm not picking on it, okay? But when you have, there's certain things that are supposed to be done. There's certain ways that things are supposed to be done, and if the system is rigged and abused, which do I have to even tell you? Everything is down here. Okay. Yeah. So they get these guys in basically, and they don't speak, half of English. They speak maybe, 3 words. I'm not kidding. If you go watch the video, half of them don't understand what I'm saying. They repeat, huh, and the one guy comes over, big fat guy. He had to be, oh Christ, Chris, I don't know. He had to be like 350, 400 pounds and probably like 6'4". Big sucker, big Haitian guy. He wanted to arrest me in the worst way. Now, I'm 5'5", and I'm standing there and I'm face to face with him, and you see me, come on, just take a DVD. No, I don't want that. And if you keep talking to me, I'm going to arrest you. And I'm like, for what? I'm standing on the sidewalk. Oh, you're blocking the sidewalk. I'm like, no, I'm not. Look, I'm standing next to the newspaper machine. Oh, no, you're blocking the sidewalk. I said, well, then you have to arrest the newspaper machine too, and the people that own it. You have to go to their company and go arrest them. And he's like, I'm done talking to you. And this same cop earlier, when I brought up the whole vaccine issue to me, he goes, well, I've only seen on the news that 1 kid died. So what? Oh, so even if there was only 1 kid that died out of all these people that got vaccines, that's okay, that's acceptable.
Some people are lost causes, I think. With those types, I wouldn't even bother. I mean, there's a lot of people I don't even bother with, and it's not because I don't want to bother with them. It's just because even Jesus says, don't cast your pearls before swine, because these people they're stuck in their ways. They're not going to get it. Our job is to just say, here's the information. If you want it, great. If you don't, no problem at all. That's my opinion.
Exactly. And there's a way to stand up for yourself. Basically, I guess where I was going with that was like in Chris's situation, if I had kept pushing it, I could have got, I knew where it would have gone. It would have gotten me locked up, and then I wouldn't have been able to continue to get the DVDs and stuff out to the people that needed it. So I went to my car, got 2 bullhorns, and I went across the street. I said, well, are you going to screw with me if I go across the street? And they thought that nobody would come over and get any information. So they said, yeah, I don't care. You just can't stand here on the sidewalk in front of the health department. So I went, okay. So I crossed the street, and I proceeded to bullhorn with me and another guy with bullhorns. And then people had to cross the street. And then the cop yelled across the street, if somebody gets hit by a car, it's your fault. And I yelled back on camera, there's 20, 30 people crossing the street. And I said, no, it's your fault, officer, because you're forcing people to come over here to get information. And he couldn't say anything else. Within like 20 or 30 minutes, they left. And people questioned why they were forced to walk across the street, a busy street, to get the information. So I didn't get arrested. I still was able to get the information out and even protest the cops censoring me and not go to jail. And it was the way I handled it. So there is a way to do things and a way not to do things. We're going to break. We'll be right back. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Today is August 26, 2011. This is the Friday edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. And today I'm joined by my two friends, Chris Gio and Sheree. And Chris has been going over the interesting experience. Yes, the incident. But I wouldn't say it was all bad because, again, Chris, as I've been harping on, you really, really were able to turn it into a situation where it can be used to at least explain, maybe as a, not explain, I don't want to say it that way because that sounds like, ooh, we are the overlords. Maybe like an example of what would be a good way, a positive way to deal with people when you can. Obviously, like you said, some of these cops are just jackboot douchebags and there's nothing you can really do about that. But a lot of times I find that you get more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. That's what my mother used to tell me when I was a kid. So it does work. Now, if it comes to a point where they start smacking you in the face and everything else with their physical, well, then that changes the whole page. You know what I'm saying? That's a complete different thing. You were able to, with verbiage and your body language and the vibes that you put off, meaning you were not afraid. You were putting off a confidence vibe. We only operate on fear or love. So obviously you had love coming out. And I'm not saying you were running around, oh, I want to hug you, officer. You know what I mean. You weren't emanating that fear vibration, that frequency. So he wasn't feeding off of it. And
well, I went in there knowing
much better.
Yeah, I went in there knowing what I was doing, what the rules are, what their laws are. I don't think that the laws apply to us. They're the ones that wrote them. Let it apply to them. But we should hold them to it.
It's important for people to know, at least understand that their laws apply only to the Law Society in reality. Okay, they get you to think. When you say the words "I understand," when they say "Do you understand?" and you say "Yes, I understand," you're actually saying "Yes, I stand under you." Okay, exactly. So you have to understand how it works, but it's good to know the stuff because look how it look. Chris is like in the video. Do you know the guy? I think the guy said to you, "Do you know the Constitution or something?" And you were like, "Do you know the Constitution?" I mean, you're right. See, you're not just I have my constitutional right, and then when the guy says to you, "What right is it? Tell me." You don't go, what your rights are. That's important that you know, because then you can stand up and say this, and you can start listing off all their little BS laws or statutes that they, and rules and regulations that they have to go by, not you, they. And a lot of times it's amazing. Did you ever see the video of the guy in the courtroom and he announced himself as a sovereign and everything else, and he was speaking to the judge, I don't, not like you're a dick, Your Honor, or anything like that.
Was it a black Muslim guy?
No, this was a white dude with a baseball hat. He wouldn't even take his baseball hat off in court. And he's standing there and he said something like, I'm sovereign, this, that, the other thing. Long story short, the judge got up, bowed to him, and walked out of the court.
No, I haven't seen that. I need a link to that, definitely.
And the cops, I'll send it to you after the show. The deputies, like they kept wanting to, like they kept getting close to him, and he's like, "Don't touch me, don't you put your hands on me, don't touch me. I am a sovereign." And dude, I swear to God, These deputies backed off. The judge got up, bowed to him, and walked out. It's like how to handle, what's the title of it? How to handle a judge, or how a sovereign handles a judge. Just, for the listeners, if you Google or go on YouTube, sovereign gets judge to bow or something like that, or judge bows to sovereign, I'm sure it'll pop up. And you'll see the guy, he just stands his ground. He knows the truth. He understands the Constitution. He knows that courts work on admiralty law, which none of us as people, as individuals, as sovereign individuals, as people, as humans, that those laws don't apply to us. They apply to a corporation that we agree to physically represent. And then we physically have to pay when we sign that ticket. Why do you think they made it a law? Remember, Chris, you're old enough to remember that back in the day, you didn't always have to sign your ticket. Remember people used to tell, like an informed person would tell the cop to piss off and throw the ticket out the window. I'm not signing that.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, now they made it a law.
Yeah, now they did. Yeah, exactly.
Or you go to jail. So they use the threat of arrest to make you enter into a contract illegally.
And that's duress.
Which is unconstitutional. So they're breaking the law. See, it doesn't matter. And Chris, I know I'm harping on this because I know that you know this already, but it's good for the listeners to know. And I'm glad that you're actually here with me to even give your thoughts and your knowledge on it. Because, guys, look, you got to listen to Chris and Sheree's show on Saturday nights on Oracle, because they do have a broad variety of guests and everything. But, like, Chris pontificates on a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about, admiralty law and knowing this stuff. And it's important because look how he was able to handle himself. And Chris, didn't you end up having like an average conversation with the guy, like behind the scenes? He has like kidney stones or something he was telling you?
Yeah, absolutely. It started, I was able to kind of size this guy up. I hate to use that term. I was able to feel this guy out as soon as he put the handcuffs on me, because he didn't do it forcefully. He didn't do it aggressively. He didn't do it like he wanted to be a big badass. He was really gentle, for lack of a better word, about it. So I could tell, because he was showing me that respect right then, even though he was violating my Fourth Amendment right, even though he was arresting me unlawfully, he still felt like he was in the right. I mean, I honestly believe that that's how he felt in his heart. But we got into the car, and as soon as we got into the car, you can see a little bit on it on video. He says, well, I believe in the Constitution too. I served in the military, et cetera, et cetera. That's where the conversation began, because I said, well, you've taken an oath, and I really appreciate that. And we've taken an oath too. I've never served in the military, but I have taken an oath to protect and defend the Constitution from enemies, foreign and domestic. And that's what we have to do. And we need more officers like you out there who understand what's going on, who understand people's rights. So when they're given an illegal order, an unlawful order, they can know that they don't have to follow that order. And I said, it's really a shame that you have to take time out of your day when you can be out there catching real bad guys to have to deal with a situation like this. And that's when it started. We got into the car. We started to drive towards the FEMA camp. And he looks at me. He says, do you have an affair back there? Are you comfortable? And I said, yeah, no problem at all. And then he says, are your handcuffs too tight? Are you in any pain at all? No. So we just started talking, and we started talking about, he asked me, why did you move to Colorado? I said, well, my girlfriend has a degenerative disc in her neck. And the great thing is she was on painkillers when she was down there. It was killing her. It was tearing her up. And we moved up here for the medicinal marijuana. Now, we don't smoke it all the time, is what I told him. I said, they have lotions that you can put on your head, that you can put on your neck. They're non-psychoactive. And these things are like miracle drugs. And he says, well, I've had to take a lot of pain meds myself, and nothing works for me. Last time I had to take something was Demerol. And I said, you have to get off those pharmaceuticals. I said, let me ask you this. Do you have kidney stone problems as a result? He says, yeah, I do. I always have kidney stones. I said, well, here's what you do. Get some lemon juice, get some olive oil, about 4 ounces of each, freshly squeezed lemon juice, mix it together, drink that. If it doesn't work the first time, drink it a couple of other times. What happens is the acids from the lemon juice will break down the kidney stones, and the oil will lube up the system, and they will just come out painlessly. He said, really? I didn't know that. He says, I have always felt every time I go to the doctor, I get sick. I said, that's because of all the side effects of all the medication. And I said, not only that, but they're poisoning us in the water. They're poisoning us in the sky. I mean, just have a look up. Just look up right now. And he looked up at the sky. I said, you see that plane right there? That's a chemtrail plane. and they're just spraying the hell out of us. Who knows what's in there? We've taken samples. There's barium and aluminum, et cetera, but nobody knows exactly why they're doing this. And the conversation just progressed from there. And he even told me, I don't know if I should say this on air because I'm pretty sure his supervisors are listening, but he said, look, just a warning. He said, on federal property, even if you have a red card, federal agents are still required to arrest you. So make sure you do not bring any marijuana on federal property. I mean, it blew my mind how we were relating like human beings, like people, it was just two people talking to each other. And then we started joking around a little bit. I started telling him about the radio show, some of the stuff that we talk about. And he asked me, why are you so scared of FEMA? I said, I'm not scared of FEMA. It's just last time people started setting up camps all over the place, it didn't turn out well for the German people. I just don't see it turning out well for us. And he said, have you been watching Camp FEMA? And I said, yeah, of course. Have you seen it too? He says, yeah, I've seen that. And the conversation just progressed from there. And I was probably there for an hour, and I could have gotten out in about 10 or 15 minutes had I not been talking to him about this kind of stuff. So we just got into more and more about what's going on in the world, the invasion in Libya, how there's a lot of fake videos out there, fake news stories. He goes, you know what? I felt that something wasn't right with that situation. And all of a sudden, it was just two people exchanging words. And that's exactly what we have to do when we encounter these people. Break down that cop mentality and make it two people exchanging words.
Chris, I couldn't have said any better myself. We are back, and this is the last segment of the Friday edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. I'm hanging out with Chris and Sheree today, and Chris and I have been going over his interesting experience with a FEMA police officer, whatever you want to call him.
DHS.
DHS cop.
Yes.
Yeah, because FEMA is under the DHS umbrella.
You know, when I was speaking to this guy, I always had in the back of my mind, maybe he's just fishing out information. So I was really careful as to what I said, even though I did bring up the medicinal marijuana. But again, no fear. Why should I fear that? We're here in a medicinal state, and it's a natural cure. So, I even brought up that point, and he just, it just went into a whole personal thing from then on. And he was telling me about himself and all of this. And I told him that I recently lost about 15, 20 pounds drinking barley grass. And he goes, really? I need to try some of that because, I saw a comment in the chat room, Officer Chubby and things like that. It's like, I've seen those comments on YouTube, and you have to imagine all this work, everything that I've instilled into his mind to where he's starting to think now. He goes and reads some of those comments and says, screw these people. So we have to be real careful when we use ad hominem attacks and personal attacks and things like that. Take that away and realize that we're all human beings at the bottom of it. And every human being is capable of that spark of truth. And once you ignite that spark, it can just blow up into a big fire with some people. Some people, of course, you can't even get the spark to go through, but some people can. And that made me realize all of a sudden, holy crap, these are the people whose minds we need to reach. If these are the guys with the guns, and these are the guys who are supposed to enforce this totalitarian police state, if we reach these minds, we have a free country. Not only do we have a free country, but we're also protected.
Well, most of them don't want to be, look, not every person with a badge wants to be a dickhead. I mean, I at one point wanted to be a cop. I used to work for Department of Homeland Security. I was in the Coast Guard. Now, yes, we are our own branch of the military, and we actually our units train with the Marine Corps. But that doesn't mean that anything, because we were technically under, I'm doing air quotes, under the control of DHS, which we were more Nazi-esque because we could do paramilitary stuff. The Coast Guard's got special forces units. And every year down here, they love to show off. And you see the special forces team down here, the MSS team. It's MSST, excuse me. They jump out of they'll rappel out of the helicopters, but instead of using a Coast Guard chopper, because that might look a little weird on TV, having a Coast Guard chopper and everybody rappelling out, they use a Border Patrol Black Hawk. So that's much better. Now you guys don't even you don't even look like the Coast Guard that I once worked with and actually had a lot of respect for. Now these guys remind me of what happened it's like looking at 1933 Germany with just more better technology, like more high-tech gear, and it's all over again. They're taking agencies, and don't get me wrong, the Coast Guard always had special forces units, okay? But the stuff, it was always usually the Guard, it's like the Army stays with their stuff, the Guard stays with, its own stuff. And here they're working with a federal agency, the Border Patrol. And they randomly I don't want to say flights. Can't talk tonight. They randomly do flights around South Florida. And they'll say, "Oh, we're cruising the coastline." But Border Patrol, it's not like you see them cruising around every day. Normally when you see a helicopter, it's a Coast Guard chopper. You don't see the Border Patrol cruising around every day. When you do see them, they got a door gunner. And they break them out now, Chris, if they had a couple years ago a cop get shot, and they had this huge manhunt. And, I mean, they had Border Patrol agents, FBI, they had the DHS agents that are around here, local cops, Sheriff's Department, Border Patrol was flying around with a Black Hawk. And they kept showing the Black Hawk on the news and saying, it's so severe that they had to get out a chopper, must be a really bad guy, they're trying to save everybody. Nobody saw the conditioning of what they were doing. You know what I mean? Nobody saw what they were doing. Not only are they conditioning the public, they're conditioning the people, because I used to be one of them.
Yeah.
The guys that do it, they're conditioning them. That's what the drills are for. It's so that you have muscle memory and you do things without even thinking about it. It's like mind control. We touched on this on your show the last time I was on. Sheree's got a great article. Sheree, what's the name of the article again, really quick, that you did?
Oh, man. Was it
Teen Mania?
It was Teen Mania's Honor Academy, Religious Indoctrination, and Mind Control.
Yeah, by the way, before I forget, tell them where they can check it out. Tell them both your sites. Give that out quick, because we only got a few minutes, but I want to make sure I give all your links out so everybody can go check it out. Go ahead.
Absolutely. TruthFrequencyRadio.com, TruthFrequencyNews.com, and YouTube.com/TruthFrequency. And
please go check out Sheree's article, because she really, it's important, because you really break down what's going on. I mean, it's 3 videos. You got to take the time and listen to it. If you want to learn about mind control and you want to see a prime example of it, she shows you kids willing to roll down a hill covered in vomit. Do I have to say any more? Right, Sheree?
Willing to do these things. They do it wholeheartedly. Sir, I am full of joy, sir, is what they make them scream while they do it.
It's all mind control. That's exactly what it is. That's what the law is, too. It's mind control. They make you believe that you are somehow subject to these laws and statutes and everything that they write. And you're really not. You're flesh and blood human beings, ladies and gentlemen. And when we start remembering that, then we can really be free. And when we start seeing others as human beings, too, and not, jackboot thugs or just because they have a certain uniform on. Now, I do have to say this, though. If the guy would have grabbed me, threw me to the ground when he was handcuffing me, I probably wouldn't have said another word the entire encounter. So you have to really kind of feel out the situation before you proceed for something like this. But I think it turned out really, really well. And we got rid of the fear factor completely, and love, kindness, understanding, and respect towards your fellow man. And that's why it turned into an exchange of words between 2 people. Not between an officer and somebody who was arrested, an exchange of words between 2 people.
Exactly. We have to break down that barrier, because that's how we're going to get to them. Because right now they have this mentality of we're the bad guys. Remember, they've been trained. I was trying to educate one of the local bloggers here that I spread her links for her so people can, around the world can see it's an example of local corruption, and that's what she covers. Every once in a while she might talk about something national, but she usually nails the local stuff. And she's actually responsible for getting the mayor that called the FBI on me voted out. So kudos to her. And she's a prime example of like how to do something grassroots. And she had a horrible experience with a cop the other night at a town hall meeting where the cop put her. I was telling you guys the other day. They were standing and she walked. He made a comment to her as he walked by. She was minding her own business, and he came up and he snarled in her face and everything else. And he had that look, and she said he looked like a snarling dog. Now that's the exact opposite of what you dealt with. So that's the case that you were talking about. You got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them.
Exactly. I've dealt with jackboots before. And while I still stand my ground and I still go through the same way that I go through everything, there's a certain point where I cut it off and say, I'm not going to try to educate this guy or bring any information to the table or anything. The most important thing whenever you get pulled over by a cop or anything is get out of the situation safely. That's the number one thing.
They want you to do something stupid so that they can arrest you. Because once you're in the system, it takes forever to get out. Okay? And it doesn't matter if you're innocent or not. You're still going to end up paying money out. And you're doing nobody any good by being locked up. And all the money and time you waste end up dealing with all that crap is it's just a waste of time, energy, and everything else, and money when you don't have to push it that far. Now, if it was already a physical altercation, if the guy just came up and, smacked Chris in the face or something, or maybe Chris would have handled it differently. But honestly, I don't think, this comes from someone who was a firefighter. I was a first responder, okay, on 9/11. I was in the military. I grew up in a pretty tough area. I've had a job as a bouncer, okay. This comes from someone who's been in plenty of fights in his life, okay. You don't need to always go down that path and push it. Sometimes it's better. In fact, most of the time, it's better to handle it with wisdom and enlightenment than with your fists.
Exactly.
That doesn't get you anywhere, dude. And in case of, not saying fist, but being a smart ass with your mouth. It's the same way. Like Chris could have been like, oh, F you, I don't have to show you anything, kiss my ass. He didn't do that. He handled himself the proper way. And, look how you handled it. And look how it turned out. That's all I can say. You took a crappy situation and you turned it into a perfect example of how to at least control yourself when you're in a situation like that.
Let me throw out a couple of plugs real quick. Our first guest, Rob Menard, worldfreemansociety.org, The Anti-Terrorist, youtube.com/The Anti-Terrorist, Paranoid, livefree.fm. These are the people that I've learned from. If you want to learn this kind of information, listen to what they have to say.
There you go, man. Thank you very much, Chris, for sharing your knowledge. Thank you, Chris and Sheree, both for coming on my show today. I will have you guys back on soon. Listeners, I will see you on Sunday, and don't forget to check out Chris and Sheree tomorrow night on Oracle Broadcasting.
Individual taking the photographs. Remember that the public has a right to photograph the exterior of a federal facility from publicly accessible spaces such as streets, sidewalks, parks, and plazas. Identify yourself. Conduct a field investigation to determine the purpose of taking photographs of the facility and endeavor to ascertain the identity of the individual. Note that such encounters are voluntary contacts, not detentions. In order to detain somebody, you have to have reasonable suspicion. And then you can move forward to what's called the Terry stop, which came out of Terryon, Ohio. And the Terry stop is where they think, you might be up to you might be up to no good, but they have to have a reasonable suspicion, as in they see a pack of zigzags in your hand. And then they might, reasonably suspect you might have marijuana in a place where it's illegal. Or they smell marijuana smoke, reasonable suspicion again. So we seem to have gone from point A to point C all of a sudden. In order to arrest somebody, you have to have probable cause. We all know this. And we were still conducting the field interview, or he was conducting the field interview, I should say. And then all of a sudden he decided to put the handcuffs on me because I decided to walk away. He started asking me for my identification. Knowing that this was a field interview they were conducting, of course, I stuck to my Fourth Amendment right. Now, we got a few comments that made a lot of sense. Somebody said, well, next time, just don't take your identification with you. And then you don't have to tell them no. You can just tell them that you don't have it. Simple as that. That was very good advice. But when you're in the middle of it, you have your adrenaline.
Play till we're finished. We're in hell right now, gentlemen, believe me. And we can stay here, get the shit kicked out of us, or we can fight our way back into the light. We can climb out of hell, 1 inch at a time. You know, when you get old in life, things get taken from you. I mean, that's part of life. But you only learn that when you start losing stuff. You find out life's this game of inches. So is football. Because in either game, life or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, 1/2 a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second. On this team, we fight for that inch. On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw our fingernails for that inch. Because we know when we add up all those inches, that's going to make the fucking difference between winning and losing.
Matter perspective, really, but I'll get into that in a minute. It was actually FEMA that was writing down license plates, which raised even more of a red flag. Had it been DHS, then I would have thought, that's what they do. They're Homeland Security, they're Gestapo anyways. But FEMA was doing it, and this was 2 days after the earthquake in Denver and a day after the earthquake in Washington. So I was thinking maybe they're getting ready, gearing up for something coming up in the future. If we look at Japan and other areas like that, they seem to have small tremors and small earthquakes, 4.0, 5.0, things like that, before the big one hits. So me being the crazy conspiracy theorist that I am, I'm thinking maybe these are the small ones and they know about the big ones coming. But I thought they were gearing up for a whole operation. But as it turns out, they were just writing down license plates. But still, why should they violate our rights like that and write down license plates? Why do they need a tracking databases? That's a question that everybody out there should be asking. And we got in their face and asked them the questions. And it was the security guard, really, that B. Larson guy, who really started the whole ordeal. As soon as I walked in, he said, "You can't film here. You can't film here." And when somebody tells a journalist you can't film, more of a reason to film, because, hey, what are you trying to hide? And as it turns out, it's not even illegal to film a federal building. Even Homeland Security's own documents, clearly, they have an outline on how to handle people that are filming the buildings. And it starts out, for number one, observe the individual's actions until the time that you believe that a field interview is warranted. Approach the...
Welcome to the show, guys. I'm your host, Popeye. This is Down the Rabbit Hole. And today, I am pleased to be joined by two of my friends, and everybody out there already knows who they are. I couldn't give them an introduction big enough that would be fitting of them. So I'll just bring them on, and you guys can enjoy them. Chris, Sheree, say hello.
Oh, you're too kind, Popeye. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And all the activism that you've done, all the work that you've done, it's just an honor. And you've been very inspirational to us, too. As you can tell in that video that I posted, I put fear is the mind killer. And I didn't quite understand what that meant because I've heard it from Dune over and over and over again. But when you said it on our show, it really just resonated with me completely and just brought a whole new meaning to it.
Well, you certainly showed no fear the other day. And just in case the listeners don't know what I'm talking about, Chris was doing his duty as an independent journalist, which I don't see anybody else in the mainstream doing, okay? And he confronted, I think it was Department of Homeland Security, if I remember correctly, and they were writing down license plate numbers in front of a local post office for no apparent reason, just doing it. So Chris, doing his due diligence as a reporter and a journalist and a radio show host, he went and questioned them. And boy, that didn't turn out too good, did it, Chris?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. It's a matter.
It's the guy who's willing to die who's going to win that inch. And I know if I'm going to have any life anymore, it's because I'm still willing to fight and die for that inch. Because that's what living is. There's 6 inches in front of your face. Now, I can't make you do it. You got to look at the guy next to you. Look into his eyes. Now, I think you're going to see a guy who will go that inch with you. You're going to see a guy who will sacrifice himself for this team because he knows when it comes down to it, you're going to do the same for him. That's the team, gentlemen. And either we heal now as a team, or we will die as individuals.
Ideas are bulletproof.
Yes, they are. Ideas are bulletproof. They can't stop us all. So everybody rise up, get pissed, get mad, get involved, and do something. Take your country back. Take your planet back. Otherwise, we're going to end up in a tyrannical 1984 technologically advanced type prison planet that's going to make anything in the past look like Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm.